You know the way that things go when what you fight for starts to fall. And in that fuzzy picture, the writing stands out on the wall so clearly on the wall. Send out the signals deep and loud. And in this place, can you reassure me with a touch, a smile, while the cradle's burning? All the while the world is turning to noise. Oh, the more that it's surrounding us, the more that it destroys. Turn up the signal, wipe out the noise.
Thank you. It's really fun to begin with one of my favorite theologians, Peter Gabriel, the composer of that song. And he writes, I'm losing the sound and sight of all those who can tell me wrong from right, when all things beautiful and bright sink in the night. Yet there's still something in my heart that can find a way to make a new start, to turn up the signal and wipe out the noise. Gabriel uses a concept from audio engineering called signal-to-noise ratio to compose a metaphor for finding the truth. Audio engineers use signal-to-noise ratio to measure how much noise is present in a given sound. It's the ratio of the strength of the intended signal to that of the interference or the noise. Signal-to-noise ratio generally is used to measure how much useful information there is in any system as a proportion of its entire contents. And some call the noise in such systems, audio or otherwise, transients. And so this concept, signal-to-noise, squares well with the reading that Deb Ellis did so well from the prophetic Unitarian minister Theodore Parker. In his Transient and Permanent in Christianity, Parker labels the styles of worship, the doctrines and stories about Jesus as transient, as noise, as non-essential. But the truth contained in Jesus' words, however, he says this is the permanent. This is the signal to which we should pay attention. He writes, an undue place has been assigned to forms and doctrines, while too little stress has been laid on the divine life of the soul, on love to God, on love to humankind. Parker cites many examples of how we mistake the tree for the forest, of how we confuse the priestly robe for the actual angel, how we make idols out of our theories and what we attach to those theories. He even shares of how we hold on to those errors after we've had the truth demonstrated to us. Some of us may have experienced this in our lives. I certainly know I have. Many refuse the demonstration of the actuality, like those today who say refuse to learn lessons about climate change. Parker reminds us that before his time, many respected scientists refused to even look through Galileo's telescope because they knew such a device had nothing to teach them. They already knew the truth about the heavens. It was described in the accepted theories of Aristotle and the church. Of course, then we learn through Galileo's example that what one person was imprisoned for professing in one century, another will be imprisoned for denying in the next. Parker cautions, beware of authority being taken as truth, because truth should be our authority. Turn up the signal, wipe out the noise. The prophet Amos also divides the transient from the permanent, and he uses strong language. He's speaking to his people of his own Hebrew faith when he writes, I despise your festivals. And of course, Amos is putting these words in the mouth of the Almighty. God is telling the people this, according to Amos. He claims that too often we become distracted from the real work by the joys of the festival, of the ceremony, the shiny thing, the reward. The forms of religion he's trying to teach us are transient, whether it's the hymns or the readings or the order of service, even the sermon. But the truths to which they point, they are what is permanent, what is signal. He was saying, you're doing all of the festivals and sacrifices correctly, but when you leave the temple, you're not building a more just world. He saw that the people of his time had turned up the noise. One of the most reliable sources of the transient, the noise in our own world, is popular culture. And boy, don't so many of us love popular culture. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, celebrity news, whatever it is. Unitarian Universalists are not immune. We're tied to our devices and the media streaming through them, just like everyone else. And it's important for us to be fully aware of who we are, embedded in this culture with all of the noise hurled at us. It's important to know who we as Unitarian Universalists are. Did you know that individually, Unitarian Universalists are the third wealthiest denomination in the U.S. behind Hindus and Reform Jews? Unitarians invented the public library system. They championed public education and prison reform, founded major newspapers and colleges. Even P.T. Barnum, the circus guy, was one of us. Yet, so many Unitarian Universalists love to believe that we're quirky or edgy or fringy. Folks, our faith is squarely in the mainstream of the American middle, and so are we. We are of the world, of the state, of the culture. Most of us are solidly middle class and white collar. How many plumbers in the room? Please raise your hand. I'm not asking this just because I just bought a house. No, if you are, please see me after the service. Just know who we are, right? We are mainstream America. It helps to know our lineage. Let me explain how not knowing our situation can seem foolish to an outsider. The second time I ever entered a Unitarian Universalist congregation on a Sunday morning was very interesting. Second time. I was an electrician, a rather practical, no-nonsense kind of guy, though I like to have fun. I'm open to new experiences. But I walked into that place that morning and I was handed a stick. And I was told it was a wand. Kids were dressed in capes with funny-looking ties and running around the sanctuary before the service. They all had sticks. I mean, wands. All I could think of is somebody's going to put an eye out. Maybe mine. The lay leader started and began the service talking about, I don't know, mugwumps or hogwash or something. The order of service mentioned a man named Harry Potter. I heard of this guy. I wondered which one was Harry. I couldn't tell. Everyone seemed to be snickering, chuckling, as if they had stumbled upon some super cool special secret, some inside joke. And it was a youth service, and I love youth service. But just say this one needed a little work. So when I asked during the coffee hour about what I had just experienced, most of what people said to me was, wasn't it great our kids could dress up like Harry Potter characters in church? Where else can children do that? We're so edgy. Edgy. The Harry Potter series is the single best-selling series of books in the history of time. Total sales worldwide has exceeded $20 billion. It represents the very zenith of culture. It was a hit. Everyone jumped on board the bandwagon with their sticks, wands. Sorry, I'm getting carried away. Whatever the Harry Potter series is or is not, and I love it now, didn't know about it. It's not edgy. It's not fringe. It's the very culture that we are embedded in. Now, For the record, I don't think good worship needs to be fringy or edgy, though it should be countercultural. And I'm sure there have been effective Harry Potter-themed services that have served genuine religious purposes. But if I had not already decided that I was a Unitarian Universalist, I might not have come back. It's important to know who you are and what you're doing. What I witnessed was transient distortion that made me feel confused and maybe a little unwelcome. It's important to remember why folks come here. They come to turn up the signal and wipe out the noise. And you do this by cultivating theological complexity, fashioning intellectual rigor, promoting emotional honesty. We come here to resist being tools of consumption and pop culture hysteria, to encounter beauty and have fun. This is why we come. Our project is to feel ourselves part of something larger than ourselves, deeper than the culture, to participate in something that welcomes us all, regardless of the books we've read, the work we do, whom we love, how we pray. A mature faith, worthy of our most sincere devotion, resists the transient and elevates the permanent. It's important to remember that faith has no party, truth, no permanent allies. That which enlivens, illuminates, cares for, and connects in love. This is truth. This deserves our faith. The rest is noise. Considering how much more noise today is directed at us, whether it's tailor-made by spam bots and ad men to surround us everywhere, no wonder it can feel difficult to discern the signal from the noise. Now, if they let you all pump gas yourselves here in New Jersey, you might have encountered this unfortunate thing that I discovered in Virginia about 8 years ago. I went to fill up my gas tank, and on the gas pump was a television. And it had nothing but ads trying to sell me stuff that I didn't want then and will never want. And you know, maybe this is just me, but sometimes when I'm going somewhere, I've got a lot on my mind, and there was some interesting respite at the gas station where I could actually be alone with my own thoughts. And here's some schmuck on the gas pump yammering on at me, and you couldn't turn it off. These things keep me up at night. We have to toil to keep the noise from infecting our thinking, from distancing our love, from confusing fact with nonsense, or titillizing us with demeaning distraction. So how do we recognize what is true and deserves our attention? And attendant with that, how do we promote justice? You know, too often, folks act as if justice is an event. You know, something you can buy tickets for, right? You know, it's a snapshot in time, a game that will be decided, and then voila, we have a just world. But we know that's not so. Truth and justice are like an attitude, an orientation, a way of loving, living, being, and thinking that keeps before us our highest resolve, what is most important, goading us to live with authenticity and integrity. We are called as a people of faith to speak the truth with love, to hold the broken with compassion, to command the rich and powerful to be fair co-creators in building beloved community. This is what is worthy of our best selves, defining the difference between living and simply existing. Now, don't get me wrong. You know I love to have fun, and I'm pretty good at it, actually. We all need release. Not every moment of life is intense and requires a difficult decision. But perhaps we could learn from what Ta-Nehisi Coates teaches. He speaks of his African American heritage, saying, perhaps struggle is all we have because the God of history is an atheist. And nothing about his world is meant to be. So we must wake up every morning knowing that no promise is unbreakable, least of all the promise of waking up. But this is not despair. These are the preferences of the universe itself. It's good to know the world we live in and the forces that move it. It is a struggle to hear the truth through the noise. Indeed, when we see life as struggle, we transform our own meaning of struggle to actually include joy. We expect struggle, so we learn to stand with kindness and humility, because we know that the struggle for truth is a lifelong thing. And so as we confront the powerful, we become less weary or in need of frivolous things because of that realization. We recognize the signal, the truth, as something we must work to comprehend and must organize to make it thrive. Life as struggle calls us to do and be something greater, to serve purposes larger than our will and our whim. And whether you feel called by life, or love, or God, or the universe, whatever you call it, in that diversity Anya spoke of in the prayer. The signal of truth says, show up. Listen to the stranger. Heal the broken. Honor the fallen. Disturb the oppressor. Truth asks much of us, but it gives us so much more. Indeed, some days bring triumph and some defeat. Some days frustration, others we shine. We take comfort in knowing that we are heeding something holier than the cry of consumerism and selfishness, and that is our reward. We do our best to live this truth here. Those relationships that we make, serving a mission dedicated to truth, they save us. They build an inner integrity constructed by sincere devotion to the world that we know as it should be. And as we are engaged in this struggle, we gather allies to enable truth to inhabit the earth with greater beauty and power. This is our salvation. And we know that we live in dangerous times, as all times have been. Right? So what source shall we invite into our hearing? Perhaps today's Time for All Ages offers one path to turn up the signal. Answering those 3 questions from Tolstoy, let us remember that now is the most important time. It's the only time we can control. That the most important people are the ones you are with in this moment. And the most important thing to do is that one good thing for those you're with now. All else may be beyond our control. So turn off those noisemakers, those amplifiers spewing propaganda. Shut down the echo chambers of greed and misery. Instead, become receivers, attenuating the noise so the one, the holy, the true, the permanent are more likely to be perceived and then transmitted and shared. All this is just another way of saying, know thyself. And also have fun. Remember, we are squarely in the mainstream of American culture, so let us use our access to privilege and power to change what must be changed. To shout, Black Lives Matter. To sing transgender rights. To share financial resources more fairly. To head off environmental devastation. To demand accountability from those who govern us. We have more power than we ever imagined. Remember, the easiest yet most powerful social justice is that simple act listening. Listen to others. Listen to yourselves. Listen to the holy. Tune in. Filter out the noise. Test the truth you hear. But show up. Put it on the line, because that which brings us into being asks only one thing of us. That's everything. We can live with power, beauty, and integrity. As Gabriel shares, when all things beautiful and bright sink in the night, yet there's still something in my heart that can find a way to make a start, to turn up the signal and wipe out the noise. So as we prepare to sing our closing hymn, I'm going to remind us that we often best see the light that should guide us in the darkest hours. We hear the call beckoning our best selves when we wipe out the noise and the world grows a little more quiet. So hush. The signal is trying to reach us, and the truth is calling our names.